I have to say, I am loving this season of My Hero Academia. I really appreciate how when this series brings up tropes, they bring it up in such a unique way that I kind of wonder, why haven't I seen this more, at least as of late? The whole idea of like the power of friendship is something that is used and abused, milked more than any dairy cow imaginable in pretty much every battle shonen out there. I don't know why, but it's like the go-to route of needing to overcome an obstacle. And this week's episode introduces the power of friendship, but gives it to the antagonist, these three villains who actually trusted in each other a lot, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, oh, that's actually kind of sweet. It's actually an interesting angle. You're actually making the villains not just use one another, but actually supporting because, you know, they've all had shitty lives, you know, Overhaul has been manipulating them to basically being scumbags, and then you have Suneater or Tamaki just shut it down. Power of friendship didn't do shit. And it's almost like it's reverse of what you typically see, where usually the power of friendship is on the protagonist side, and then the big bad villain doesn't overtake them, but the power of friendship wins. But no, here it's like, no, giant octopus, crab hand looking man, he just shut that shit down. You gotta love My Hero Academia, I have to say. Another great episode. I have to say, I'm really enjoying Tamaki's character a hell of a lot. Like, ever since I saw his abilities really in action, my mind was racing thinking of the limitations, the amount of just creative options that his body could handle based on whatever he ingests, I guess in that day or within a period of time. He could turn his body into a monstrous form, but that'd be pretty awesome as a hero. And this week's episode, though we do get a good amount of action that was beautifully animated for the most part, it was really driven by his character and his flaws. And the flaws weren't focused on the ability, but rather his own personal struggle. And that's the type of stuff I love to see, especially in My Hero Academia. The whole idea of one of the big three basically just, he's amazing. Just look at his ability, but he has no self-esteem. He's shy, he's introverted, he feels as if everyone's always judging him, and we get a lot of focus on his backstory, both with him and Tokido throughout his school life, but also the idea of why it was okay for him to take on these three villains by himself. The whole idea that Fat Gum actually let him handle this by himself, I was pretty much like all the heroes. Wait, you're gonna let a kid, even if he's one of the strongest heroes at his school, like, are you really gonna let a kid handle this when you should leave it to the pro heroes? But Fat Gum knows that he is the strongest out of everyone in that room right there. And the fact that he said he was going to do it, that he rose to the occasion, meant that he was finally coming out of his shell and there was no way he was gonna hold him back. And that's when you realize, like, what we were about to experience. Because I thought it was just amazing watching just what his school life was like, where, you know, you're seeing little bits of his abilities. He was basically like getting a leaf coming from his hand, and, you know, he felt like everyone was always judging him. I think a lot of people watching this episode or read the chapters in the manga were probably gonna relate to this guy in some way, just the idea of feeling judged, feeling out of place, as if you weren't living up to the potential others seen in you, either a teacher or a parent or just a friend. And sometimes there was no one actually judging you, but you just felt that yourself. I know I can say I relate to that a hell of a lot. And the idea that Tokido was always this guy who just laughed and made everyone smile in a lot of ways similar to Alma, in the sense that, you know, people just, he was a pleasant person to be around, you weren't scared of him. And the whole idea that they became friends just because Tokido assumed that, you know, he was going to talk about heroes, I thought was like the perfect way to represent their relationship in such a small amount of time, but really seeing that just every step of the way, you know, you have this amazing friend who you think, you know, his ability's great, he's great with people in general, and you were just some shut-in failure. Your ability's probably a freak of nature in your mind, you're not even living up to the potential. And I thought the idea of how he came up with his name was probably one of my favorite, like, realizations of why a hero name was picked. The idea of thinking that your, like, best friend, one of your closest people in your life, is brighter than the sun. He's just this beacon that is always around you, and he looks at you being like, what are you saying? You're even more amazing. And the idea that that's how he became the Suneater. It's basically a name to kind of counter just his own negativity, and it wasn't really until this episode that he's actually started to live up to that name and really shine as this, like, beacon that people would believe in. And I thought just that entire build-up, watching the flashbacks, watching him in the present, and seeing how much he was struggling, in a lot of ways, I'd say I probably related to this character the most out of any of the My Hero Academia characters as of late. As, yeah, you know, going through school, you know, it's just so easy to shit on yourself, feel like you're out of place, there's something wrong because, you know, you look elsewhere and you say, oh, this person has what I want, And you just realize, later in life, in hindsight, you look back just seeing like, if I would have just done that, I could have had exactly what I was envious of. And the whole system of just building up to that, he was doing all right, but he was definitely getting his ass handed to him on more than one occasion because they were all complimenting one another. And just the idea of having his like tentacles basically be eaten or just stabbed, slashed, ripped apart, like it was actually a pretty brutal fight, especially because I thought it would be pretty one-sided, just, a giant octopus basically just grabbing you, tossing you around. I thought he would have no problem, but to actually see how much he was struggling, and it was mainly due to his own just flaws in his own mind, thinking he couldn't do it, why was he even trying to be this big hero, but once he overcame his inconsistencies, he was actually able to do some pretty crazy things. I have to say, that was a 4D chess move when he ate the guy's crystal, and just everything about that, it was just this manipulative and just so precise move to take them all out, blind one, inherit the power of another, and just, it was amazing, I have to say. But as much as I love the whole power of friendship, I think we had one of the best lines in My Hero Academia this week. The whole idea that they basically can't eat their friends, there's so many ways to take that line in both, not so safe for work fashion, and also just kind of shutting down the power of friendship, but just, it was kind of amazing to watch how he overcame them because he realized that these people have so much trust in each other that they would never put each other in harm's way, twists a trope, but then also smashes it in their face, all in the process, and you gotta love My Hero Academia for moments like those. I think anyone who's either been on the fence about this character or has completely loved him ever since his introduction is going to be blown away with this episode, because it was literally driven on personality and just character struggles, and obviously he's not perfect. He's still probably going to be a little introverted, a little shy, and he's probably still has a long way to go. But at the very least, you felt like based on what we saw with that flashback and where he went in this episode and the fact that, Fat Gum was actually just blown away that the person that he's been with for probably a good amount of time, who he's always wanted to leave his shell, is so proud of what his underling is about to do. And I assume once he sees whatever happens, he's going to be even more proud. I mean, Fat Gum's the kind of character who's just so polite, so pleasant. He's always like, apologizing for barging into a criminal's organization or saying don't judge someone if you think they're buying a children's doll or something, right? But it's nice to see that underneath all that, there actually is these like parental love there. And I really appreciate moments like that, and just kind of flipping back and forth. For the most part, it was Tamaki's episode 100%, but it didn't change the fact that, some of our side characters also got a few moments, and watching some of the abilities play out, especially the whole idea of like the maze, was amazing. One of my favorite visuals that we've seen in quite some time. The whole idea of like a labyrinth and just warping perspective, I feel like a lot of times, especially with anime, that's a very select handful, that anytime they've tried to like distort the frame and make it feel like you're nauseous or you can't really get your 2 feet on the ground. Like, that's how it kind of feels, or at least that's what a lot of stories want to do with abilities such as these, but not many live up to the ability in terms of its writing quality. The visuals just usually fall flat on its face. But here, like, the maze looked weird. Like, you just kind of wanted to turn around, like, as if you would take one step and then you might be on the ceiling or something. It didn't feel normal, and it was supposed to try to push you out, so like a lot of the characters probably feeling dizzy and disoriented, so too did the viewer, at least I know I did. And just seeing the idea of just, all the obstacles coming their way, both with characters attacking them or just artificial walls and things like that. The characters are slowly getting separated, and that's where it's going to get nasty. I mean, Tokido went off by himself, Deku's going to be following not too far behind, but still, like, the more the characters separate, the easier overhauling these characters are going to have. And, I love the one moment in this episode where the bubbles just blind someone. And I just started laughing. I don't know if it was just me, but it's just, you have combat skills for sure, but just watching this girl just, blind him with a bubble and then just kind of kicking their ass, it kind of makes sense. It kind of reminded me as if she had like this pepper spray ability where they couldn't see and then you could just pummel them while they're kind of just, their eyes are stinging and they can't see for a good few minutes. It's such a basic idea for an ability, but it just works so well in that situation that I just let it laugh, but also thought it was badass all in the process. It really became something that doesn't rely on the tropes that made a lot of retro shonen battle series very popular, but rather is relying on its own originality and twists and turns of the formula to really present something that feels deserving of the hype. It's not something that's just popular because it has, fun powers. It does have fun powers, but it's the characters. Like, every single character that we've put a focus on in this season, you can look at last season, season 2 as well, it feels as if they are important. It doesn't feel like we need to focus back on Deku, or we need to focus back on All Might, or something like that. If we're focusing on Tokido, we're focusing on Suneater, like all of these characters, hell, Even Fat Gum. I wouldn't have said that in season 1, but yeah, this dude's amazing and he has that parental love. All the characters, they have their moments to shine, and this season is just blowing me away because everyone, either who I thought was cool, good character design, good abilities, but what would their personality be? We've only really seen them interact with Deku or some of the other characters for a few seconds, and you got a basic idea of their personality, but where are you going to take it? Well, episodes like these, this season in general, is showing us it's taking them not only explaining why they're like this, but also where they're going to go in the future. And an episode like this completely blows me away. And I just totally love the idea that Overhaul literally manipulated 3 people who just were really dealt bad hands in life, either left for dead or just they needed someone to lend them a helping hand, and they pretty much became indoctrinated by this man. And it makes him even more terrifying because you're pummeling in people who, if they would have just been lent a hand by a hero rather than this scummy villain, maybe their life would have took a different direction and they would have been charging into this building rather than preventing others from trying to get to the horrible scumbag that is our main villain of this season. But you gotta love him for being a part of it. It just feels as if My Hero Academia is not slowing down. Like, I know this episode was a feels-good episode. It kind of felt like our heroes did pretty well. They're taking it out. We're getting character growth. Yeah, it was a struggle, but still, it felt good. But you know, the more separated these characters become, the worse off they are going to be. And I am both excited but fearful of what the future, especially them going through this building that warps perspectives or just really puts a distance between each other. It's not going to be good, especially if only one character gets to overhaul. It's going to be bad. It's gonna be badass, it's gonna be bad, but you never know. Like, My Hero Academia could both be super pleasant and totally heart-throbbingly horrible all in the same episode. This season has so many possibilities, and the fact that we got not only an incredible fight that just really went all in with this ability, like with Red Riot, I mean, just some of the animation and art design, just still frames were goddamn beautiful, but I love this episode specifically because I love the backstory and how it tied in to current progression. Like, a lot of anime would rely on just showing you the backstory of why he's shy and say that's character development, but that's not character development. All that is explaining why your character is currently like this. But with this episode, you actually progressed him into a new direction and giving him a chance to not feel so isolated and actually start to come out of his shell and really embrace who he is. That's character development, and it's goddamn exceptional. What did everyone think for manga readers, anime originals, whatever the hell you're feeling? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like and remember to hit that subscribe button if you have been new. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.